Hi, I'm Jackie Silver.
And I'm Cynthia Rowland.
And we are
the
Ageless Sisters. We're so excited to be in the kitchen of our very good friend Tamara Yapp, who has an amazing company called Real Food, Real Life that everybody needs to know about. Not only does she have an amazing story, but she has some amazing and delicious tasting, but good for you drinks and powders and all kinds of goodies. Tell us all about it.
Well, I'm a mother of 7, and I had a little boy that was very ill, and I had to find a way to make him feel better. And the only way I seem to be able to do that is to be able to get nutrients in him that were actually broken down and pre-digested. And that pre-digested word doesn't sound very good, does it? But what it means is when you ferment something.
Wait, birds do it.
Birds do it, that's
so
true.
There.
So, yeah, exactly. So when you pre-digest something, it's actually, I should say, back it up, when you ferment something, it pre-digests it. So it breaks it down, so it actually makes it to where your body doesn't have to do anything but to absorb the nutrients and take in all the vitamins and probiotics.
And how did you actually discover all this and find out about it? It was probably a lot of trial and error and other stuff.
Yes, we did a lot of things that didn't work. What I first was told is that obviously he wasn't breaking down his nutrients, so I assumed if I just got a regular protein powders or if I just got regular green powders that he would get better. I mean, obviously that's pretty thin and blended up, right? It's in a smoothie. Why wouldn't that work? Well, he still wasn't absorbing it. And what I realized is that when you don't break down something into an amino acid level, no matter what it is, your body has to convert it inside. Whether it's in a big, huge steak, a potato, or a powdered drink. And so he was not converting any of the nutrients into amino acids. And that's what we need to grow and get healthy. I didn't even know that you know that a protein, the reason you have proteins, did you know this? You probably knew this. The reason you have proteins is so that your body will convert them into amino acids.
I did not know that.
I did not. And then your body uses those amino acids, that's what it needs. It can't use protein. The protein goes in, it has to be converted to be usable.
Okay.
I'm like,
how did you learn
this
that?
This is science 101.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that to me was pretty astonishing to say, okay, so I know I always needed to give him his proteins, and I knew I had to feed him organic, and I knew I had to give him lots of vegetables, but I didn't even understand that when I gave him his vegetables, if his body could not convert them and use them, then it doesn't know what to do with it. It's not like and if he didn't have enough live enzymes to break down the foods, then he couldn't even digest them and use them.
And not to mention that our soil is so depleted that all those nutrients aren't even in the vegetables.
Right.
Even the organic, they try and they're doing a great job, but that's just the state of affairs.
Yeah.
So you know what I would like for you to do is tell us all about this, about what you've done and what these are and what they do. And you just, go for it.
Explain it. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
okay.
So we'll go over it.
Tamara, I see 6 items here. Is this your first item? How did you come up with all 6
good
items?
question.
And
No
how
one
did
ever asked me that question.
Really?
I have to say it. It's funny how people go, how did you just do it all at once? No. This was the powder, the Pro-Dailyotic, that I started with first. And the reason being is because CJ, all kids, if you understand how many vegetables they're supposed to have in a day, you could barely get them to have. And what am I going to do? Have them for breakfast, and then I'm going to have them for when he comes home for snack, and then he's going to have them for lunch, and then he's going to, let's be real here.
Yeah.
On top of it, he's not, they're not usually happy with a lot of vegetables. Especially when you're not feeling good. Vegetables aren't something that makes the kids feel comfortable. So I took all the vegetables that you could possibly, that a doctor said he needed to make sure he had. I took even every algae that they said, oh yeah, you really should try to get your son to eat more like a Japanese person would, A lot of algae, seaweeds, you're like
sure.
Yeah, he's going to have a bowl of that for sure. And then on top of that, he could only have grains that were protein grains. And I had to be very careful about that. So for the longest time, he wasn't eating any grains at all, just vegetables and protein. Vegetables and proteins. That was all he was eating. And
let me ask you a question. Did he go along with this pattern with you?
He had to, because
Okay.
I had to muscle him. It was really, in fact, I'm known as the queen of no, and my husband's the queen of yes, because I would say no all day long, and then my husband would come home and say, we had to play good guy, otherwise he'd feel like you both are against me. It was like we were doing something wrong to him, is how it felt. And when he would leave the room, he would go, I'm going to be back. Like, yucky lady.
Yeah.
Threatening you. Exactly. Like, you just be prepared. Someday I'm going to get big. So, but he was, at that time, we were just excited he was talking, when I was muscling him like that. But
How old was he at this point?
he was 8 years old, and he was really, was very funny. As clearly as I said, "I'll be back," you know, he would do it very scripted. Like he would do the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, "I'll be back," like "lady for you," you know. So he couldn't talk normal to me yet, but he could talk, of course. So, you know, he was using his words. But he went from being very healthy baby, somewhat, which a compromised immune system, to then not being healthy, and then to be extremely sick. He also had colitis and Crohn's on top of autism, which, of course, autism alone is just about enough to send you over the edge. So this is what he had. Did I do it right? Pro-dailyotic, and that has grains, everything. And I would give him just little pinches of that. And I met a wonderful woman in Australia who was already fermenting foods, and she helped me come up with the formula that tastes right. That was the hardest thing, because it tasted like, if you put sea vegetables in there, no matter how many of the other things were in there, it tastes like sea vegetables. So the sea. Yeah, the sea. And
the bottom of the sea.
Like my husband says, it sounds like you've been working in the pier. Yeah, that smells like the pier, like when you walk on the pier sometimes. But what I found to be most intriguing about this is we would run I would tell her, well, I should run nutritional profiles, right, on everything, so I made sure I'm balancing his nutrients. She goes, no, you need to run, amino acid profiles. I said, well, why would I do that? She goes, well, honey, when these are converted, when you ferment them, they get converted already from the nutrients into aminos, and that's what he needs. And I'm like, amino acids? I only related that to bodybuilders. Sounds like I'm an idiot. But really, that's all I did, is I didn't associate it to anything my family needed. They needed protein. I didn't know that was the reason to get the amino acids. So we ran amino profiles, and so when we tweaked the formula enough, then it came to this, and we were like, oh my gosh. So she says, well, you're going to need a liquid to go with that, because when you ferment, which is, people don't realize, is all of our ancestors ate fermented foods, and then we stopped.
I didn't know that. How did they eat fermented
Well,
food?
every nationality had their own. Like, if you're, Korean or Vietnamese, you had kimchi. And then if you were Japanese, you had miso. And if you're Italian, you had your salamis and your cheeses. So all those are a fermentation process, an aging process that good bacteria and live enzymes live on the product. So when you're having that with every meal, and then, of course, then they were eating right off the farm, so they were getting live enzymes from their vegetables and their fruits, and they were getting all the good bacteria from their foods they were eating. They didn't have to worry about. And they didn't have antibiotics then, so we weren't wiping the whole village out and not repopulating. If anybody had to have an antibiotic at that time, even at the early stages, they were still consistently replenishing. And they were making yogurts. I mean, everybody's making yogurts. So they believed that we all kind of started to decline when we got a refrigerator, because now we could buy vegetables and let them sit for longer periods of time. We didn't have to ferment anything, because now we could refrigerate it, because the fermentation process was to preserve. So we looked at it as a luxury to have a refrigerator, and really it was really quite a death sentence. It's like I told my husband I should do a little test and not use a refrigerator for like a week. And then I think about it and go, no, I don't think so. I won't try that. I'll just stick with the facts from previous, generations. So what we did is show, when we take all these vegetables, we put it in these gigantic vats, and we do everything in Australia, because in Australia the organic restrictions are very, very high, and they don't even entertain the thought of GMO, genetically modified organisms. They're like, sorry, they, kick them right off the batch. So interesting, though, they're constantly trying, every country is constantly trying to introduce GMO products, and they have to stand very strong and very firm about it. We, unfortunately, here in the United States have kind of folded a little bit.
Hopefully that will change.
I sure hope so, because it's not good. So what we do is we take all the vegetables, grains, algae, and we put them in a gigantic, it's gigantic, it's like a gigantic crock pot. And we put mother cultures, we put 12 strains of good bacteria and 2 strains of beneficial yeast. And it's about 2% is yeast, and the rest, 98%, is good bacteria. And then all the enzymes and the good bacteria that's already on the vegetables, they go in a vat for 6 weeks with water. They ferment.
So there's no heat or nothing.
It's all raw.
Okay.
For 6
Got
weeks.
Got it.
And so for 6 weeks, then after it's done, we drain out all the water. Now that water that comes out of there has so many nutrients in it, but it tastes like the pure, because the sea vegetables, again, when it overwhelms the water flavors and all the nutrients. So all these vegetables, you could have, 2% sea vegetables and it would taste like sea vegetables. So we could drink the liquid that came out of that leftover, but we choose to make a fresh batch that we use solely only for the liquid.
Oh.
So, and we use only, of course, grains and grains that taste the best when they're soaked. So there's a different thing. The powder tastes good on certain batches. So then we of course dehydrate the powder, and then we blend it so it's very fine. As you can see in our powders, is that you guys have had them before.
Yes.
They're just very fine.
Yes.
And that one doesn't smell like sea vegetables.
No, but it does have a fragrance.
Yeah, it has a fragrance. It does. It does have a
And
fragrance.
it's dark green.
Yes.
So it looks healthy.
I know my girlfriend who her son is getting really, really better, and he was so sick, and she says, we call it, everybody want their pond water. I said, do you have to call it pond water? But she goes, it is green. You can't get away from that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we make the powder, and then we make a whole other batch, and we just actually get rid of the powdered form because it doesn't have the right nutrient components for us to use as a powder, and we make our liquids. Not this one, but these particular flavors.
Now you have 3 flavors here.
We have 3 flavors.
Grapefruit, which is Jackie's favorite, and we have the grain one, which is kind of like, okay, is that your favorite?
Isn't
Okay,
that funny?
yes, because I have that one.
Beer.
Yeah, it's so funny. Some of them taste like my husband. This is his favorite. This is mine. And I don't like beer, so it's really weird that I will even drink it. And the lime mint, of course, that one we can't keep these 2s in. We laugh. We think this one gives people the name, kind of throws them off.
Yeah.
But it's really actually my favorite. Both my daughter and I and my husband. So very funny. So there are 3 different flavors, and they all have a little bit of different nutrients in them, but they all have the same base. So which means we will take a base that has a lot of nutrients in it, but is very vanilla in its flavor, so that it won't taste like the beer. So, but it's interesting. These to me are very sparkling, very, they have, when you ferment liquid, it actually gets kind of like, we call them, they're bacteria farts actually. But that's what happens is the bacteria gets in there and gets all crazy and does its thing and really flourishes and grows. And so all the good bacteria is left in the liquids.
Isn't that so amazing? I know that when, okay, so here at the bottom, you can see that this, when Jackie and I were opening our first one, okay, oh, well, we were very careful because when I first turned that lid, I knew that something was about to happen. I didn't know.
It's funny. We put this on here and people still go open it up.
So
we, like right now, these are room temperature. So if we open these up, the bacteria is alive and very powerful. So we always tell everyone, the minute you get them from the mail, then you put them in the refrigerator and you put them to sleep. When they're cold, they're asleep.
I see.
And they actually, we have inoculated them against many different things. So against any type of radiation from shipping here, from the airport, we inoculate it against, which means that the bacteria is resistant to being killed by it. Birth control pills, because a lot of probiotics create problems with birth control pills. So ours is
making them ineffective?
Making them ineffective, the way antibiotics does,
yes.
right? Knocks them out. So everybody always says use protection when you're taking an antibiotic. Same thing should hold true for a probiotic. But I think the probiotic actually gets killed more than the other way around with birth control. And then we inoculate so that they'll go to sleep. They actually go like completely asleep when we freeze them. So you can even make ice cubes out of these. We make popsicles all the time. So
oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah, they work really good. We put a bunch of different fruits, and it makes a fruit popsicle then very healthy for you because the bacteria will eat the sugars from the fruits.
How
so
about
I
that?
know we just got into a wonderful resort, the first of its kind in Maui, and it definitely won't be the last, and it's called Soul Space. And they are making everything there is healing and nourishing and soul, rejuvenating. And we're making popsicles when people first get there, and all the drinks are coming in champagne glasses. It's great.
Oh, how wonderful.
So yes, and you can add these. You have an ounce. This is 16 servings. They come a little larger. But you can add, water to this. You can add juice. The only thing is if you add something that's too sweet, it's going to work on the sweetness that you gave it, and not what's in your gut to rebalance it. It just won't do any, we call it damage control.
Now, I know that all of this began because your son was ill.
Yeah.
And that was probably, 7 years ago?
Well, he's 15 tomorrow. How sad is that? And
it's pretty exciting,
it's
actually.
I know, but the fact that you're like, he's so old, I'm getting older. He was very sick, I think, when he was first born, but we didn't know about fermented foods and probiotics and understand them because there was nothing on the market like this. So, and there still isn't. So until he actually got to actually explore the workings of this and how it would affect him, he was 8 years old. So we went a very long time on a gluten, casein-free diet, no sugar, no corn, and only organic, and having only nutrition and no grains for most of his life. And now he has grains. He has good, healthy grains, quinoa and millets. But it's magic. I say.
And
that,
this has become part of his daily regimen.
Oh,
He
yeah.
no longer
The whole family.
And he no longer fights you on it. Nobody does.
Nobody.
And he's healthy.
Yeah, we make smoothies with this. We put this in a smoothie. We have this like a cocktail. Sometimes we blend them together. The interesting part is I'm writing a book right now. We all talked about how I still love books. It seems to be no one seems to want to do books anymore, but I love them. And we're talking. The story is going to be that I went to try to heal my son of autism, and I got rid of my wrinkles. I mean, it was weird because I realized that my gut was actually dehydrating my body, and I was very imbalanced. Unfortunately, autism is an autoimmune disease, and it starts from the parents. That's why it's not going to be just fixed by keep fixing these kids. We need to understand that it started from us. It's generational. I had very bad acne. I was on antibiotics constantly. I was taught to have a little yogurt, but if you can't have dairy, you can't have yogurt. And even it would never work. People always say, oh, I have my probiotics, I have yogurt. But if yogurt has to be refrigerated and it curdles when it's in heat, how well does that probiotic survive all the way down to your colon to remodel it? It doesn't. So that's why I like the fact that these are not inoculated to anything that could get in your gut. It's acids, everything.
Well, before we leave, and we're going to wrap this up very quickly, but how do people get this? I know that you cannot have the only child on the planet who needs this, or
the
adults.
Or the only adults, right? So yes, my website, which is realfoodreallife.tv, television, and we use the .tv because we have a lot of different shows that talk about how to get well and different things to do, and we of course mention the Ageless Sisters because I think what's most important is they've chosen to take a path of health to be able to maintain beauty, and that's the most important thing, is to age gracefully, and that's how I've lived my life, and it's not always how I've lived my life. So I'm really blessed to have people that continue to encourage people to do, I guess, beauty safely.
Beauty safely. Thank you, Tamara.
You're so welcome.
Oh my goodness, what a great interview you are. And thank you
you
for opening your home to the Ageless Sisters today.
My pleasure. It's a treat.
Okay.